Welcome to Reay Art. My name's Teresa. Thank you for tuning in. Today I'd like to talk about kilns, and I'm not going to go into great detail, but just to sort of go over as an overview, if you like. I myself bought a Scut 14 kiln from Warm Glass. It's a great kiln because for someone who hadn't necessarily fired before, I wanted something that was very easy to use. And by the way, hello Pepe, our studio mascot. The kiln, when it arrives, comes fully kitted. You just literally take it out of the wrapping. You've got your controller here, which is absolutely brilliant, and it comes with auto settings. So here's the manual, and nice light bedtime reading, and in the back it's giving you all the programs that are currently set for that particular kiln. And what I tended to do was I went through and recalculated the Celsius instead of the Fahrenheit because I found that was easier. The manual tells you in the back you've got your frequently asked questions and what is a firing program, etc, etc. It goes through in great detail. I also found that whilst you had what we call the Oregon preset idiot-proof auto settings, you may want to program the kiln because you'd like to get a different effect. And Warm Glass produce a really good sheet that you can download, which is, they have experimented profusely with firings. They're firing all day, every day, and they give you their recommended temperatures and firings. So for example, I've programmed program 2 to do a slump program, and we set it for a wave mold. Now each mold will need a different top temperature and therefore soak time. So therefore I would go in and just reprogram that particular segment for my particular mould. Inside the kiln, if I open it up, so inside the kiln you will see here that the elements are in the lid in this particular model. Now some models have the elements on the inside rim. The kiln comes with kiln blocks so that you can raise the shelf, and also there's a thermostat here from the controller. One thing I found with using my kiln is that the shelves are quite a tight fit, and if you've got big hands you're in a little bit of trouble here. So lowering the shelf into the kiln, you want to make sure that you're not knocking that thermostat, the little element there, because if you do, you're going to have problems with your settings. The kiln shelf, one word that they do say is that you shouldn't leave the lid of your kiln up for any extended period of time. Quite logical really. There's a band that's holding these bricks in place, and if you keep the shelf up for any length of time, then you run the risk that that's going to crumble or they're going to shift and move, and considering that's where your element is, you don't want that to happen. After a while of having the kiln, I'm just going to say this and I'll come back to the shelf, is I got a bit of damage. Because these are bricks, they're fire bricks, they do tend to have some damage. So what you have to do is go and get some what they call refractory cement, and you thin that with water and you start to build up where you've got a little bit of crumbling going on. So don't panic if after, like me, a year, you've got a little bit of work to do on your maintaining and looking after your kiln. The kiln shelf, quite heavy, comes, and you get one shelf. This is another shelf that I bought. The shelf that actually comes with it is nice and rounded and quite easy to manipulate and put in. The ones that you buy, the extra shelves, aren't. And as you can see, I haven't got a lot of room to lower that shelf into the kiln. So I'm just going to shut this. All of your programming is done by these three buttons here. Your start and stop button is the first button, and it's recommended that when the kiln comes to the end of its program, you're available to switch it off. So what I tend to do is to put it on at night before I leave the studio, and then come in the morning and turn it off and allow it to run through, you know, to cool at its own pace, rather than leaving it switched on all the time. Kiln paper makes your life easy. I have kiln washed, which I've got here, the shelf, similar to a mould. You need to do, you know, 4 or 5 coats. Then your glass won't stick to the shelf. But what I use is kiln paper, and the kiln paper or fire paper enables me to cut it to size to the shelf or to whatever piece of work I'm doing, and again, it won't, then your piece won't stick. When you've finished your firing, this will turn to dust, and as you can see here, that's the remains of one firing that's gone into that bucket. Not recommended to breathe that in, and I'd be very careful when I'm disposing of it. Kiln logs. So since the very beginning of day 1 of having my kiln, I actually write the date and time, the type of firing, the type of glass, and the item. So what am I going to be firing? I then write the segments or the actual program, and then when it's finished, I write my comments as to how that piece came out. And as you can see, every single firing has been logged in the logbook. It is really recommended to do that, because if you have got a problem, which we have had in the past, so that's when my kiln lid got damaged. So basically, if there is a problem, you can go back and look at what the problem was, and then you know how to rectify it, so that you know, you're not experimenting every time you fire the kiln. The other thing is that sometimes when you do a piece, you may use the auto program, say on a auto fast tack, and not like the results. So if you've got it in your log and you've logged the result and what you didn't like about it, again, you can then either go in and program a program to do what you want and experiment with the temperatures. So I highly recommend that you keep a kiln log for every time that you do a firing with your kiln. As I said, this is a brief overview. I'm not going to explain about setting the programs or anything else. That's for future. Do come back and visit me again, and thank you for watching, and have a wonderful day. Bye.